Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with filmmaker Ian Hunt-Duffy about his suspenseful thriller Double Blind. So thank you so much for chatting with us.
No, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a brilliant film. It was so exciting to watch it on the big screen. The production value was gorgeous. It's so tense and sort of fun as well in that like high octane, very relevant thematic way. So it's kind of like, there's something for everything. Your senses are tickled, and then you're left like going, oh, that's a good message.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, first and foremost, we wanted to be entertaining. We were trying to just craft something exciting and thrilling and full of suspense. And yeah, obviously then we do have like some messaging in there and some subtext and theme going through it. And some of it's probably because it was delayed with COVID and stuff, like it's probably more relevant now than it was, or it's taken on a new relevance. And so I guess that's lucky timing in a way.
Yeah, that people really like, there's a bit where people go into lockdown and people are like, oh yeah, I really feel that that was stressful at the levels of anxiety. But actually, well, I think I'm gonna go back and get to you about the very start of your career and going up through, because it's great this is your first feature. It's amazing to have someone who's come up through the ecosystem of Irish film, and I just want to talk about your journey to get here. And as well, what I love is that you've kept your creative crew. So I'm also going to dive into that element. But first, like, okay, how did you get into film? Where did you train? Who did you make scrappy little films with along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's maybe like the kind of cliche story, but like I started off as a child messing around with the home camcorder, making with my brother Aidan. We would borrow our dad's camcorder and we make like little stop motion animation films, or we would like reenact scenes from like action films we would watch, like we'd be using like cap guns and things like that. And even when I was younger, I would have had like action figures up in my room, and my mum would be saying, "Oh, he's up there." Like directing, I guess. I was probably like moving the actors around.
It's important that they're blocked properly.
Yeah. So I think I was just always just like reenacting scenes from films. And so I loved cinema from a young age, but like I never really knew that there was a career in it, or that like, this was a job. But I remember, do you remember a show? It was like Movies, Games and Videos. It was on a Saturday, and like I don't know. It was, but it like every Saturday would kind of just show you like trailers of movies, or there might be like some behind the scenes footage of a movie. And I just remember that was mind blowing when I was like, oh my God, like there are people who actually make these films. Like this is what they do. Like, wow. So that was sort of like sparked it early on. I remember going, oh, I'd love to make a movie then. How do I go about that? But then, so I'm from Dundalk, and I like uh, I guess I don't want to like to say in that little town, but like to say, oh, I want to be a film director, I want to go to Hollywood and make a movie was sort of like a ridiculous thing to say. It was like you want to be a rock star or something. So there wasn't that much encouragement in terms of in like school or whatever. It was always like this sort of like that's what I want to do, but I'll do these other subjects. And I even remember there was like the equivalent of a career guidance counselor or whatever, like saying like, would you not do like, engineering or blah, blah, like it was just trying to dissuade me away from arts or like filmmaking. But then there were like teachers along the way, like English teachers who were really encouraging. And then like I did transition year, and there was like a film course and that, like film studies, and like we watched a lot of films. So that was great. And so yeah, we were just kind of I'd be making like little kind of, as you said, scrappy short films along the way. But I went to Dunleary after school. I applied for the film school in Dunleary in IDT. And so that's where I like formally trained for 4 years doing the film course out there. And I guess the best thing I got out of that were the kind of friendships and the collaborators. So like the writer on this film and my short films, I met in film school, Simon, with the producer. We've worked together since film school. Narian Van Male, the cinematographer, was in film school. So these are all like partnerships and collaborations we like that developed in film school, and then we've kind of worked together ever since. So when I graduated from film school like 2009. That's showing my age a little bit. And then we set up, myself and Simon Doyle, we set up Fail Safe Films, a production company in Dublin. And we were kind of doing a bit of everything, like ads or online videos, but also short films. Like the goal was always like drama, like making features, I suppose was the goal, like, you know. So we did a rake of short films over the years, producing them for other directors and writers. And then I got to direct my first short film post college, like my first funded short was Gridlock. And
Which
that
you
was something.
done exceptionally well and screened everywhere. That was
Yeah.
like, and it's long, like it's a 20-minute short. So like even you're like it got into all the good festivals. But it's brilliant. Like it's an incredible short film.
Oh
And
yeah,
you can
no,
see the
thank you.
yeah, you can see the tension that like that sort of like playing with perception, like all that is in that as well. So like I mean, in a way, I suppose you're out of college and Dún Laoghaire as well, that the standard is so high that you achieve when you're there, but like it is a very like it's almost like you arrived fully formed.
Well, I did it. Yeah, I mean, I've done a few things after college as well. Like I think we did like a Storyland in its infancy, one of the early Storylands. I know you were involved in Storyland back in the day as well. Like so we did like a kind of a comedy one called Talk It Out that Darach wrote. But that was like it was sort of like an X Factor process. You had to like vote each week. Like you had to get people to vote to for you to make another one and stuff. So we only got to make two of those. But then and I produced a couple of short films. I produced like Love Is a Sting that was that Vincent Gallagher directed, and that did really well. And that then just gave me kind of the hunger. Like, okay, I want to direct something myself. And yeah, Gridlock. Speaking with Darach, we just wanted to make a sort of a Twilight Zone episode or something, you know, like a kind of a we were big fans of those kind of shows like Twilight Zone or Alfred Hitchcock Presents, these kind of 20-minute, 25-minute episodes where there was like a mystery or a load of suspense and tension crammed into this short amount of time. And we wanted to see if we could do that with a short film and in an Irish setting as well. So yeah, Gridlock, I didn't expect it to be this sort of like festival darling or anything like that. It was to me, it was just like this fun genre film that would be, you know, I would like to see it myself in a shorts program, like, you know. But yeah, it went on, we got to travel all over the world with that. It was brilliant, you know. So that was sort of yeah, like a I guess a statement of intent a little bit, as in, okay, this is the kind of stuff we want to do. We want to work in genre, thriller, suspense, and then that like kind of jumped off from Gridlock. Then we were able to make a focus short with Screen Ireland, Low Tide, which was more of a horror, kind of a coming of age horror. But always we had like the feature in mind. So I was trying to be like strategic with the kind of shorts I was making, that they would be building up in scale, but also like the same sort of genre and style of the feature. So that when it came time to like pitch Double Blind, I would have this sort of like, well, look, these are the shorts I've done that are in the same world, you know.
So when you're doing your shorts, you're working on your shorts at the same time, are you kind of tapping away at your treatment for double blind? Are you kind of fleshing out the idea, or do you have a kind of drawer of ideas and you're like, like this one kind of seems, you know, like because I kind of feel like sometimes you're working on projects and it's not always the one that you expect takes off, that it's
yeah.
like part of it is what like why now for this particular project. I mean, right now when you're watching Double Blind, you're like, oh yeah, like it's the most timeliest thing and the whole planet, and you know it taps into every kind of deeply held zeitgeist and everything. So you like, there's no question about why now, but like I kind of think like as a person developing stories and themes in the background, like were you like this is always the one we were going to do next, or and again, I actually think it's quite it's high concept and it's like it feels very big production design wise and in terms of curating the world. So it's not like, oh, this was like our natural low budget next choice for a first feature either.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that was like the intention to make it look as, you know, big budget as we could possibly, but we were kind of pragmatic in the approach that when myself and Darach and Simon kind of sat down to say, okay, what can we do for a first feature? We were thinking of, I'm not going to get a massive budget for my first film, so we have to be kind of smart in what so like that. The early talks were like, is there something we can do in one location? You know, obviously that's advantageous from a budget and a logistical point of view, but then, you know, from a story point of view, with talking with Darach, is there something that we can confine to this one space? Then we can use that to create a lot of tension or claustrophobic, an atmosphere of claustrophobia. Um, Darach, it wasn't, he had another script, another screenplay that was like fully written, and he was very excited about that. And it was a good script, but I remember then he sort of was like, here's the script that I have, that work feature, and then I also have this idea. And it was only like he basically had like, I don't know what it is yet, but like I think that it's like basically like if you fall asleep, you die. And I was like, whoa. And so I was like, take that other script, park that other script for a minute. I know you've written it and a great job, but like I really like that idea. And Simon was the same. We were both kind of like, no, I think that idea that you have there is worth developing. That's the one. So once we had that idea and we were thinking of, can we do something in one location, that sort of gave him the idea for the clinical drug trial, like a pharmaceutical trial. And then, so it's in a pharmaceutical facility, they're testing a drug, and that's the result of this is, if you fall asleep, you die. So that was kind of, yeah, that was a jumping off point there. And it was always the one I wanted to pursue for the first feature. So I was like, yeah, we developed that. Timing wise, it was kind of the same time as Low Tide. So Low Tide, well, when Low Tide was kind of, when did we shoot Low Tide? I think it was 2018. That's when we got the first round of development for to write the screenplay for Double Blind. So I think once we got in with Screen Ireland with like doing the focus, and then they were happy with how that was going. And when we pitched them the idea for Double Blind, they could kind of see it. Um,
And would you hope so you would have just gone in, would it be something that you were maybe discussing with them at the same time outside, and then you would put in for the, what is it, the initial feature development
yeah,
production thing? So
I think it was even in the pitch for when we did our interview so when we got like shortlisted for an interview to do the focus short, and we were in like, anyone, I don't know if you're familiar, but like when you go in, you have to like, you've got your team there, and you're being like, there's a panel of interviews, and like you have like your script, and they ask you some questions on that, and a director would have like his or her lookbook or notes. But we were like in that kind of pitch, we were saying the reason we want to do this is because it's like an evolution. It's a step up from Gridlock, but it's also the next step towards this feature that we're working on. So we did like kind of name check a little bit, like, this is, we see this focus short as kind of like our stepping stone towards making that first feature with Screen Ireland. So they were aware of it. And then, yeah, when we put it in, they just, so it was a treatment we would have submitted. The Darach had written a treatment at that stage. Yeah.
yeah, because the first one, it's treatment and sample pages, isn't it? And but I mean, it really has to even be at a relatively polished stage before you submit it, because the thing about that scheme as well is you can only put things in twice. So if
Yeah.
yeah, rejected at any stage, like that's one of your times gone
I
before you
know.
go back and
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
So that's your kind of progression. Talk to me about working with Darach in developing stories. So do you guys sit down, hash things out, have a slate that you're kind of tipping away on all the time? And it sounds like that's sort of what happened with this, in that you're kind of pitching ideas. So he went, okay, I'll go develop it. Does he come back like with a one pager or something fully formed, or does he just come back with a final script and then you throw eyes over it? How does that dynamic work with the pair of you?
We would work closely together, and like Simon as well as really creative producer. So there would be like, kind of spitballing conversations, or, we get together and like talk through the idea. I think Darach likes to do an outline first. So I guess we would have a lot of conversations and talk about ideas. Then he would go and write like a step outline, and we'd read that. And then from that, maybe develop a treatment. But it would always be like Darach would be going away working on it. We would then give kind of feedback on it, and he would either take those notes or not take those notes on board, and do another kind of version of it. Actually, thinking back in Double Blind, he may have written a first draft that he might have written a first draft and submitted sample pages rather than a treatment. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure.
Yeah.
But like Double Blind went through a lot of different drafts. Like
I love to hear how things change and why they change. I think it's a very interesting process because, as an audience, we see this as this final, fully formed, completed thing. We never see behind the curtains that actually, she was a man, or, which, like originally, everyone turned into zombies or something. Do you know, like, what were the other versions of this
there
like?
were, well, funny you say she was a man. Dr. Burke was always a man actually in the script, so that was just a casting choice. We decided to flip the gender there.
And that
Uh,
really worked. Like
really
that,
worked, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what a name as well to get affiliated. Like your whole cast. Oh my God. Like when you were like, oh yeah, we were trying to keep it contained. And I was like, yeah, but the level of performers and their credit
Yeah, no,
backgrounds are
I was,
insane.
I was sort of like, yeah, the cast was amazing. It was sort of an embarrassment of riches, really. Like as a first time feature director, Amy Rowan, who was our casting director, she just did an incredible job, and it was a long process. It wasn't like an easy casting process because, as a first time director, even though I had like Gridlock and No Tide and Aid won awards, like I'm the biggest liability, because it's like. So that like, even Screen Ireland are like, okay, we got to surround you with the best team because in case you fuck it up, I guess. But like for actors in particular, there is a little bit of trepidation. I totally get it. Like, if you haven't directed a first feature, how do they know that I'm gonna deliver on the concept or, be able to get that performance out of them, or, they might, they haven't worked with me before. So there is a kind of a trust and you have to create there. So yeah, it was probably a long time casting because of I'm first time feature director. But it's an ensemble cast as well, so it's difficult. You have to get all the right personalities and individuals, and kind of you're not just casting in a vacuum with each character. It's like you're always casting the group as well. So like we focused on Claire first, and we got Millie Brady, and she's just incredible. And then we were able to kind of work out from there.
Actually, while we're on the subject of cast, I do want to say so because this is sort of thematically linked to what we were saying is the shifts and ebbs and flows about how things change from the page to the final concept. So you're casting out. Do you ever sort of tweak characters? So you're saying you flipped the gender of Dr. Burke. Is there any other thing where you're like, actually, okay, like she's, maybe got an English accent. So we'll aim to have somebody with, a thick Dublin accent to kind of play opposite that in the dynamic shift. Do characters ever change in that way? Or did you go, oh no, no, this is who we want and we're gonna try and nail people that can deliver on that?
No, and it was an evolving process. Like, and I might have gone in with a really clear idea of like the kind of actor or character in my head, and then Amy might suggest someone totally different, and I'd have to be like, okay, right, that's not what I pictured, but let me see. And then they might just do something amazing, and you have to go, okay, well, that's not what I expected or thought, but that's better. And you always have to be open to. I think you have to like check your ego a little bit and go, okay, that's a better idea, or that's a better actor for this role. In terms of the English accent and Irish accent, yeah, Claire was written as Irish, I guess, and Screen Ireland, we had tried to get an Irish lead. It wasn't for lack of trying, but but then I never really cared about that. I just wanted the best performer for the role, and so when Millie came along, we were just like, who cares if she's English? Like, and I'm not going to make her do an accent. I want her to do it in her own voice. But then that did have like a kind of knock-on effect of the ratio of Irish accents to English accents. We had to balance that out to the point of the actor Brennan O'Connor, who plays Paul in the film. He's English, doing an Irish accent. So, like, he does a great Irish accent. So we said, okay, can you do an Irish accent? Because he's like,
He's the West Brit though of them all as well, isn't he? Like that's his kind of his aura.
so, but like his character is friends with the character of Ray in the film, who's
Yeah.
Dermot Noyes, and he's like a dub.
Oh
So
yeah.
you had to have an Irish accent. I thought, like, for the two of them to be,
Oh,
you know,
actually, I'm sorry. I'm getting his character mixed up with the artisan guy, the travel guy.
oh, Marcus,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sorry, Frank.
He's the West Brit, but he's brilliant. Like you kind of, I love the eclectic personality personalities that are there and how like and again it's like it's brilliant writing, it's brilliant casting, how you're like actually I never thought about how those people would coexist in a room together and the alliances that form and bond and it's just it's really entertaining watch because we're so familiar with those character tropes and they're so some of them are so local but there's like an international appeal to them as well.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Like, and that, yeah, we were aware of the tropes that we were playing with, but we were trying to give it a little bit more than a trope.
Yeah, yeah. Or like, or have the twist of that, like have them be a little bit more meaty, like play into those expectations and then have it be a little bit. But that's again why it was just so fabulous. And like as an ensemble piece, which it can be tricky to get that right. And it feels like every one of them has an arc and has which is hard to do for that amount of time while delivering pacing, while delivering all your kind of like horror thriller set piece moments as well.
And that like that was probably the biggest thing that came out of the development process with Screen Ireland. Like the numerous drafts, they were very focused on character. Not that like it's a very heavy plotted film as well. But I would say the majority of their notes are like, okay, we need to refine this character down, or how like what like giving Claire a backstory, or how much backstory do you give the other characters? How can we like drip feed in a bit more nuance to them? Like, you know, you did, I mean, so Dervla Regan, who was our project manager at the time, she was just, her whole mantra was like, you know, you have to give a damn about these characters or you're not going to care once they start dying, you know? So, that was, yeah, a process with Screen On, just trying to round out each character, give something to each character, I suppose. And even in the deaths, like we tried to have the hallucinations that the characters would have before their death, we try and use that in the kind of can this evoke something about their fears or their their personality, that kind of thing. So
And it's brilliant, and again, like it's fascinating to watch. So again, sorry, the original question that I was asking was about those little tweaks and differences, like from the development process and the writing process. What were the changes across the drafts, or how did it evolve?
so there was another character. I think we had another character in the group. So there was like an amalgamation. That was a suggestion again from Screen Ireland that uh, I don't know, there's some like scientific research done about the number of characters that you can have that you can hold in your head as an audience member. So like we had 8 characters originally in the trial, like four male, 4 female. And I don't know, there's something about 7 is better, a better number apparently for characterization. So we lost a character, or we kind of combined 2 characters into one. There was there was a whole subplot with a mole like that, which was kind of in there now that they're suspicious of. Can we talk about spoilers in this or no?
Um,
Well, like let's just say that there's a
yeah. What we can do
character.
is we can cut it out. Like I think if I kind of think like, look, it's a thriller. We know people are going to die. Let's not say who dies. You
Okay,
know?
I'll
Yeah,
try and keep it. I won't
yeah,
spoil.
yeah,
But there's a character in the film that others suspect. Let's say
yeah.
like is that character working against us or working for Blackwood? And that was sort of the remnants of a much bigger subplot, that there was this mole amongst them. Like it was a bit more mob mentality, pointing the finger, like, who is it? And there was actually, it was revealed that there was someone, working against them inside the group. But that kind of got taken out a little bit. Just, it was sort of just, there was a kind of a few too many little plots like that, and then there was a bit more of there was an earlier draft where it was a bit more of an action-y sequence, like to try and, at the end, it was a bit more full on. I won't go into how the film ends at the minute, but so it's just like things like that are like certain death scenes might have changed. We might have tried something different.
I totally had a suspicion. Again, like it's a bit of a spoiler, but so the development process sounded very, very interesting. In terms of, were you and Dara sort of working on the script together? You're getting drafts delivered, you'd give the notes, he'd take it or not, as he said. Then, like, are you working together and then submitting to Screen Ireland for these like regular, like micro deadlines? And then after the first development stage, when did the funding development stage kick in? And what was that like?
Oh, so well, like, so the development process, you're getting a round each time, like of more.
Yeah.
Like, well, we would submit. I think we went through 3 rounds of development, like official rounds of development, and each round, like you probably, at the time, it's different model now, but we would have maybe, so we working back and forth on the draft together, and then we would submit a version to our project manager to read, and they might give notes on it, and then, or if they were happy for us then to submit officially to like kind of close off the round of development. And then I think a committee then met and then would say, do we want to give them another round? Like, and luckily we did. We went like 2 more rounds. And then it was like we were in, like, it was like 2 years of development, really, like going back and forth with Screen Ireland with the drafts. In between that, like, so that was 2018 that started. In 2019, myself and Simon, the producer, we got selected for the Frontiers International Co-Production Market, which is genre-centric market. It's in Montreal at the Fantasia Film Festival, where there's like 10 projects every year, genre projects, go and pitch on front of investors, sales agents, that kind of thing. And then you have like a couple of days of networking and meetings as a result. Like you get up on the stage and you pitch, and then the next couple of days, then you're meeting potential sales agents. So on the back of that, we got Epic Pictures on board as our sales agent. So then that kind of gave a bit more, a bit of a push, I suppose, to Screen Ireland, that, okay, so we've got with Screen Ireland and now we've got a sales agent, we've got like a backer, if you know what I mean. So at the end of 2019, going into 2020, we would have submitted then for production financing. And then we got that early, like in February. I remember it was just before my birthday in February 2020, we got like the green light. And we were like, this is it. 2020 is our year, baby.
Oh God.
And then obviously COVID shut down the world,
It probably worked better in your favor that, it's like maybe in COVID, a film coming out about lockdown would have been too much. Like
Yeah,
now we're processing the trauma of all the lockdowns, of the
yeah, yeah.
relationship to big pharma and
I
how
know,
people
yeah. I mean,
don't
lock,
trust it. Like,
yeah, like lockdown has a totally different meaning then. We had that term in our script in 2018, and that's the whole other thing. Yeah. No, no, look, it was just this. Yeah, I mean, everything.
it's almost like the world redesigned itself to fit your film.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
In the
it.
meantime.
Yeah, people are like, "Oh, it's a COVID movie," and I was like, "Well, I
Yeah.
guess." Like, I mean, look, and we would have then.
And the cost of living housing crisis has
I know.
ramped up so that these like existential struggle of these things, like honestly, I feel like it's worked in your favor.
I
It
know,
really has.
absolutely. Like, I'll totally take it. Like, yeah, yeah, it's definitely we have to take the positives out of
Out
global
of the
pandemic.
crippling collapse of
Yeah.
society. Like at least your film is received more authentically.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so I was 20, like, so we basically lost 2 years, I suppose. But in terms of different things, we were trying to go in 2021, and then different things with location and casting and stuff. It was 2022 before we actually filmed, and now out in 24. So it's a long time, like, but that, yeah, I think 2 of those years were kind of COVID stuff, delays.
Uh, So what was your actual year of shooting then? Was
Two,
the
2022.
22? Okay. Okay, so we were out of the like, like testing all the time, everyone being very socially distant.
Part
Like
of,
that
yeah,
was
22, yeah. So we were out of it, but we were still the COVID protocols were still in place for filming. So we were still wearing masks, testing ourselves all the time. Like, and actually, like on day two of the shoot, one of the actors got COVID and had to
ugh.
wait for like 7 days. So it was just like, oh my God. So straight away we had to like rejig things, and we actually, it was luckily we had our grip Charlie looked very similar to the actor, had the same hair and physique. So we threw a costume on him and like shot over his shoulder or put him in the deep background, things like that. Just anything we could do to kind of keep the show going. So
On the road. Oh
yeah.
God, it's like that. Like, I mean, and like that, it just takes down like our whole family went down like 2 weeks ago, and it's just you're out of the game and you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything, and you're like, oh. And then we had like two kids running around
I know.
trying to do work and like miserable, but it's just like it's still like the hangover of that is still there. But I'd say that was like tough shooting because like I presume like it's not like you have limited budget. Okay, I know it's very, very uncouth to talk about money. Um, so I'm gonna like be very general with it. But I am very interested because it's such a huge point of this film, and I think it's such a high production value. I just want to talk about like maybe like broad strokes what you feel comfortable in sharing with in terms of like was there co-production funding? Did that come with any caveats? And
No,
like
so I'm no, I can say it. I like because I think I've said it in other interviews. So I mean, if I get in trouble, I've already said it. But I think it's out there. And no, it wasn't a competition. We got funding from Screen Ireland, and so it was made up of funding from Screen Ireland, Epic, our sales agents, put in money, and then the rest was like Section 481, the tax. So I think we got it was just over €1 million was the budget, uh,
wow.
which was sort of like the highest we could get without going into kind of co-production side of things, or like bringing in another country if we wanted more. So we wanted to see if we could do it for, not a co-production, I guess.
And it's not micro budget, but it's low, and especially for something this high
Yeah.
concept with so many effects.
Uh,
And
I mean, well, so look, I was like, oh, €1 million, great, that's like huge, and then it's like it's spent before you even walked on the set. You know what I mean? We're all very like, ah. So, yeah, I mean, we only had 23 days of filming, which was not a lot, like at all. It was just every day we were constantly up against it, and it was scheduled within an inch of its life. So even like, on day two, when an actor goes down for a week for COVID, you're like, ah, it was tricky.
also, I wonder with actors of sort of that caliber and that busy slate, is it tough locking down like the schedules in terms of like when people are available and like pickups and things? Was that tricky as well?
It was because like I know like some of them had like a very like hard out. Like Millie, I think we couldn't really go like a day or two over because we'd lose Millie. So I remember there was like pressure towards the end of the shoot. It was like if this goes over, like, well, we didn't have the budget to go over a day, but if there any if something happened, we would have lost our lead actress. We just didn't have the kind of the wiggle room, let's say. Um Pollyanna, I think we only had her in for a few days, but like we had a great AD, Stephen Fuller, and he and a team of ADs like and producers. So like it was all well scheduled and planned and orchestrated. But yeah, there was like with a cast and obviously with an ensemble cast, like was like 8 players. There's a lot of jiggling and moving things around and horse trading, I guess, you know what I mean, to figure out like what days, and that would then have a knock on with like locations. Like you might have a location manager saying, okay, you can only get into UL and these dates, and it's like, oh well, Pollyanna or whoever is only available these dates. You're gonna have to, you know what I mean. So there's all kind of stuff. Yeah.
And tell me about the location as well. So it's most of it was shot in Limerick.
Yeah, pretty much all of us got shot. Yeah, so it's we had a like very specific location requirement. I thought it was being real clever, as I said earlier. Oh, we'll shoot it all in one location. That'll make our lives so much easier. But then we had such a like specific location in like the description, this underground windowless medical facility. That's like high end, like minimalist design, but shows off that it's like a well-funded global pharmaceutical brand. Um, so I think if we had the budget, ideally we would have built this. It'd be like this would be a studio build or a set because you'd have full control to design it. We just didn't have the money, so we had to find something that did pre-exist, a building or something that we could use. And we looked everywhere for I'm living in Dublin, so we tried to find it in Dublin as best we could. We spent a good few months looking for something in this region. We just couldn't find it. And I remember reaching out to Owen Houlihan, who's like one of the top location guys, for advice. And he suggested just getting in touch with all the film like offices in each county in Ireland and just like send them a brief of what you're looking for. Like say, look, this is what we want. If you have this in your county, we'll be willing to bring our show to you. And we looked at a few different counties, but then Limerick, film in Limerick. So Paul Ryan down there, who kind of runs that, he said, I think we've got something. As he brought us down, and we did like a recce of Limerick, and like we went to UL first, University of Limerick, and there were some cool things there. There was like they had the lab and different things. Like yeah, it could maybe work, but I don't know if we may be able to make the whole thing work here. And we went through a number of places in Limerick, and we were sort of. I remember we were having lunch. We hadn't quite found it, and we were a little bit dejected. And then he just said, well, there is one more place we could look at it. And myself and Simon were kind of looking at our watch going, we have to go back to Dublin. That's 2.5 hours. I mean, okay, look, we're here. We might as well give it a go. And we drove out to Roadkill, and they had this sort of empty industrial building and I was just like, oh my God, this is perfect. Like when we walked in, it had all the corridors, it had like the big empty space for the common room, and had loads of like offshoots of little rooms that we could then build little smaller sets in or design. So yeah, all of a sudden I could see it. I was like, okay, geez, this could in a way be a studio for us, because it was like a blank canvas and it was this empty building that they owned. And again, a COVID benefit was it was built to put in a load of businesses, but they hadn't moved in because of COVID. Lots of people are still working from home. So it was sort of like sitting there. There's only one or two businesses in it. So it ended up acting as like a studio lot for us. We had our production offices there, we had our lunch there, we had all our stuff there. And then, the corridors that you see in the film exist. Like obviously we've decorated them, painted them and different things. And the common room, we've added all the things to it, but like that space is there. So that was brilliant.
And again, I think the production design on this is second to none. Can you talk to me about like your prep? What were your influences, your um working like, and I think the visuals overall as well are so kind of polished and heightened. And I think one of the things that really works is there's the mind's eye, there's the magic realism, there's like very, even though it's, it's in one location, it's being told from multiple perspectives. Um, and you're getting, like people's internalized visions and thoughts and mental states externalized in this stylistic way that is very much so sells the concept. Can you talk to me about like your plan for, like doing that? Because that is like, there's a lot there. Like, there's a lot of things to bear in mind. There's a lot of kind of internal worlds to create, as well as these different visual styles. And I'm just, do you and Narian sit down in a room and like prep all of this, or is this something you come with a beat sheet and you guys arrive together? Because it's just like, and it works. It's so layered and interesting to watch, but it seems like that would be a lot like to take on as a first feature.
Well, I think I guess another blessing of the delay, like so when we had that like kind of 2 year delay, I was doing as much kind of visual prep as I could myself. So that was just me trying to like pull references and like inspiration from anything, like from like or other films in this sort of genre that I thought were good, or photography or art, or like you're looking on Instagram, you're looking on Pinterest, like you're just like I said, I'm a bit of a magpie, I guess, like just picking lots of shiny things, like, building this nest. And I just try to pull as much as that as possible. And then I would put that together into like a lookbook. So like it would be, stuff on like color like palettes, or, composition. I might have like some stills from other films, like ideas for that, or, images for tone and atmosphere and mood. And like, you just pull it all together. And so I have this sort of as it's not a Bible, but it's like a blueprint, or a foundation, I suppose, then that we could build upon. Like, so I would take that to Narian, we would discuss that, and he would be bringing material as well. We would talk about like, yeah, all the different like sleep tricks, as we call it, I suppose, like what are visual ways we can like represent sleep deprivation or hallucination. So that was like a lot of kind of spitball, and like, we'd be like putting like, oh, how about this or this, and just back and forth. I like to shot list myself first, so I would do like a full shot list at pass, and then I'd share that with Narian, and he would kind of do a pass on it, or he would add stuff or take things away or suggest different ideas. um and then once we start like bringing on like like different HODs, like art department or costume or makeup, um, I would try to like create a Google Drive or something for each thing, and then just share it with them. And it's a collaborative thing. I'd be like dropping in images, they would hopefully be dropping in images, and then it's like you're just kind of chatting back and forth the whole time. Go, what about this? What about this? And like trying different things. So um, as it was my first film, a feature film, I tried to have as much of a clear vision for it as possible, a strong vision like that I could communicate then. And like that lookbook and stuff. And we also did a sizzle reel. That was something I thought that was something we did for when we were pitching the film at Frontiers, but that really helped, which was we cut together a trailer for the film, but using, clips from other films, uh, and that was just a really quick way of like setting up the tone that we are going for.
The fake-o-matic, is that? Is that what it is? I think
I
I'm
guess,
the
yeah, I think that's fake. I call it scissor reel, but maybe that's not even the,
scissor. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, pretty much like as if you did like a fan trailer for the film, I suppose, but like comped together from a bunch of different movies. So we had that, and then this lookbook, and I was able to then, when we were like interviewing HODs or like talking about to people to try and get them on board the project, that was sort of like the starting point. Like, here's what I'm thinking, and then they would feed into it like with their ideas.
And
Um,
what would be your reference points? Like, what would be the things that you're like, actually, I loved this and I really wanted it to have the vibe of this? Or is there anything sort of stylistically that like where you'd like to use as your inspiration?
well, like other films, I suppose, like I love The Thing by John Carpenter, just like the paranoia, and that's like another one location thing, and this group of characters trapped together, and they slowly start turning on each other. and just that kind of icy, I mean, it's no pun intended because it's in Antarctica, but that icy atmosphere, that kind of cold vibe. So like The Thing was always a big one. I mean, there's a lot of one location thrillers that like Cube was one. Even like Exam, which is a film that Pollyanna starred in. This is like a British one location thing. So we would look at a lot of one location things. Green Room, just the tension in Green Room, like so and then but then there'd be movies that like might not be in terms of the style, but they might just have something like, so like Fight Club, for example. There's a lot of, he's an insomniac in that, and there's like the flashes of Tyler Durden, like, you know, the kind of subliminal cuts, things like that. Like you're cherry picking bits and pieces as references from other films, like to say like this is kind of the mood I want to get. In terms of like, I had color palette too. We really wanted like blue. It was just obviously predominant color in it. But yeah, we just had to. That was something that came out of talks with production design, art department, costume. We tried to pick like, I think it's like three colors in it, like really like, and apart from like red was the one that came into it then in lockdown and in blood. But it was like there was a blue, a gray, and a yellow were kind of the colors like in the costume, and like the blue stripes and the blue, like, you know, so we just tried to have a consistent look across all departments, because that was kind of my brief for it, was that like this should look like, you know, if Blackwood, the pharmaceutical company, is like a brand, they would have like an interior designer, they'd have a brand across their like wardrobe and their facilities, that kind of thing. So it should look, again, we wouldn't have a huge budget to like go like full on with props and set design, so we went for like a more minimalist design, because that would evoke a certain like style, but or like a budget as well. Like, you know, oh, they're well funded, they've gone for a minimalist look, you know what I mean? So that plays into our favor when we don't have a lot to put on into a room, you know.
Like clean lines.
Yeah, yeah.
They do a lot of heavy lifting, but they do like it's very it's very kind of the world feels so well realized in it. When you got into the edit, how was that then? Because the thing about this is there's so many arcs to balance.
Mm.
There's so many like pacing is so important, and do you know, like, and then you're selling concepts and cutaway shots, and like I can imagine for something like this, it's like the edit is a strategic moment. It's not like just a creative thing. So can you talk to me about that, about going through the footage,
Yeah,
scenes you had?
my favorite part of the process is the edit. I have to say, like, I love the edit, like, and it's that old saying of the three scripts you write, the one you write, the one you shoot, and the one you edit. I agree with that, like, because the script was changing all the time, but I think the edit is the final, like, it's the script, like, you know what I mean? That's where you actually make your film, like, you know, not to discount like the Darach and the script, but I mean, in the edit is where it's made, you know, like ultimately, like.
But I think a wrong choice, you can lose the beat of a moment or the power of a
Yeah.
moment as well. Like, so it's such a precise
Oh yeah,
moment.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw it up, I suppose. Yeah, you know. But I had a great editor on board, Colin Campbell. I was my first time working with him. And he was based in France at the time, so I had to do it remotely. That was my first time editing remotely, which I wasn't sure how that would work, because any other time I've been in the room, like physically with the editor, but it worked out great. Like, and I just, yeah, like, yeah, you try lots of different things, and um we had like a bunch of different cuts. We had to do like test screenings as well, so there's like notes on that. But no, it wasn't like, I'm trying to think, like, was there like huge bumps in a row? Not really. I think the film kind of reveals itself a little bit. Like, you'll know there were a couple.
Or how do you find it? Like, do you just feel like it's when you're watching a scene, you just do it over and over again until that like internalized artist in you goes yes? Or, you know, is it something that you finesse, or do you show it to people? Like, what's your process with the edit?
So I mean, like day to day, like the first cut, like we would just go scene by scene. So like we would do like each scene to a certain, we do a few passes on the scene till it's like at a certain level, and then we'd go on to the next scene and do that. And I wouldn't watch it until it was done. You know, I wouldn't go back. Like once we've done that scene, we go on to the next one. We wouldn't watch them concurrently then until we had like a cut.
And then the first time, did you go back and you went, ah, or was it there? Do you know? Because you're like,
It's funny. I remember on like Gridlock, the first time I watched the cut of that, like the assembly of
and that
that.
must have been 8 hours long, the
I
first cut of
yeah,
Gridlock.
it was pretty long.
It's a lot.
I remember being like so dejected, going, "Oh no, this is terrible. It's never going to work. What are we doing?" Like, and that was much more of a whip. Okay, go back to. I remember like Scorsese has a great quote, like he's saying, like the first time, if you don't feel physically ill the first time you watch the first cut of your film, like you're doing something wrong. So I took a little solace in that. And Gridlock, then, yeah, that was like a whittling down process and refining, and then eventually we got it to what we did, and it worked. So I knew kind of going into this, like, okay, even if I don't like the first cut, like we can get there. But like it was actually, we had an assembly cut done during the shooting. So we had an assistant editor on board who was editing as we went along, which I never had before, which was really helpful because it was such a tight schedule. I was able to like ask him, "Hey, can you have a look at what I shot today? And can you do a quick cut of it together just to see, do we have it, or do I have to like go back today and grab a shot of this?" And so that was really helpful. So by the end of the shoot, there was like a rough assembly done, and it was actually in pretty good shape. So it wasn't, I mean, it was too long and different things, but like I could see it. I could see, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like it was encouraging, let's say. So then when Colin came on, we like, not that we scrapped that, but we started again. Okay, we're gonna do our own cut. But we knew, that there were things that were going to work and weren't going to work already, just from watching that assembly. So when we watched the first cut, yeah, there were things that, yeah, we knew we'd have to refine, and like there was a lot of like VFX and stuff that had to be put in, and there were actually some scenes that we were going to pick up. So there were a couple of things missing, but by and large, I wasn't like pulling my hair when I saw it. It was just like, okay. Um, that was something that like we did do pickups. If you're asking something that changed, like Blackwood was actually like much more of a presence visually in the film. So we did some more video calls with like Blackwood and Pollyanna's character, where you actually saw the execs that she was talking to.
Yeah.
And this is something we shot after the fact as a pickup day and put into the film, and it didn't work, unfortunately. Like when we tested it, it was just unnecessary. And so that was kind of a hard lesson, like that we actually went out and spent time casting and shooting this, and then it was like, no, it doesn't work. But that's the thing, you have to like kill your darlings. Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And like no one cares. You might have like this shot in the film that took hours to do or cost so much money, but if it doesn't work, like for the story, it's got to go. Like no one's going to care, like, um so yeah, just like so we went through a couple of cuts, and as I said, we did like two test screenings, so we got a lot of feedback and notes from an audience there.
Who would you get to sit in for that? Would you
But
get
that was
your
like general, like so that was organized by Screen Ireland. So I can't remember the name of the company that did it, but they do test. That's their kind of job. They're like a marketing company. I think they market research. They invite members of the public to come in and watch the film, and then like fill out like a questionnaire, and then they do like a bit more of a focus group at the end of it as well with some people. And it is like, and then you get like all this data back, then like pie charts and different things of like scenes that they were losing interest in, or characters they didn't like, or different. And you just sort of have to. It's a tough thing because like for every, say there's a scene that like five people say they don't like, there's another five people that say they love it. So you're like, well, who do we,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And then the tendency, I suppose, the human nature is to go with the people who don't like it. You know what I mean? Even though someone said they loved it, you know what I mean? So it's,
And again, it's sort of like that's when is it you as an artist, going with your gut, saying this is what I believe to be true, and then when is it just this is a product that the people are consuming? Like, and the thing is, like, it's both in a way. Like, it's what, and it's interesting to see that because I kind of think like when cinema is lower budget, when it's not a big studio, like I mean that doesn't even come into the process half the time. So. I wonder, like that's very interesting that you're going through those beats.
yeah,
And I wonder, is it that it's a genre film that there's the potential for like a high volume of sales further down the line?
maybe. Yeah. I would, in my mind, that I think a lot of Irish films do this, like they do a test screening, whether they're genre or not.
And they'd say, oh, people are losing interest in this beat at that.
Well, I mean, it's not just like that, but they would have like, yeah, a lot of like information about, you know, think like, they have questions like, what did you like? What did you not like? What do you think of the end? What do you think of the start? Were there any bits that you didn't understand or
Okay.
confusing? Were there any characters you liked or didn't like? Or were there any moments where you lost interest, or, and they'd have,
Yeah.
and then they would, I guess this company would like collate the data and go, okay, it's sagging a bit in the middle, or is it, and what I remember in the second act, that was always a kind of tricky thing. We after like the shit hits the fan, let's say at the end of the first act, and we set up this premise of the lockdown and people dying and stuff. There's sort of a natural dip. Well, like we have to sort of level off for a minute before like the next death and it ramps up again. So it was trying to. That was an area we were kind of very conscious of losing momentum or pace, and that was definitely something in the test screens. We're like, okay, and we cut a few scenes then out of that section to try and pace that up, I guess.
Interesting. Oh no, that's fascinating to hear that that's the process because I never knew that, and I think it's so interesting to like. It also must be quite scary as a filmmaker, especially when something is raw in that intermediate
Yeah.
stage, like to have like eyeballs that have absolutely no like. I mean, it's so different. Like you have a festival screening, your
Yeah.
mom and your parents are there, and all your friends from school are going, "Ah, Ian's brilliant," but like, you know, if it's if it's like these people are going, yeah, well, I just watched like the Marvels and I didn't like that. It was crap. And now I'm gonna watch your film. And I was like, ugh, you know, like that
I
have
know.
no attachment to it.
But that's good though. You want that sort
Yeah,
of general, like unbiased opinion, like because that's ultimately who you're going to be playing for, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, no, as it's I would recommend doing a test screening, even if it's not through a company like this, because we did it with Gridlock as well. We did that like in Bow Street. That was more of a we just invited friends or people we knew, and before we locked the edit, just to see if because there's a twist ending at Gridlock, we wanted to see did it land or if there were any questions, and that helped us refine it. But like
yeah,
with Gridlock and even with Double Blind, like you get to a certain point in the edit where you can convince yourself of certain things. Like there might be problems, but you're like, I think that's working. I think it's fine, yeah. And it's only then when you're sitting in an audience that you like feel it in the pit of your stomach. You're like, oh
yeah,
no, that doesn't. And I think that's what's really valuable about it. Like when you
yeah,
watch the film with an audience, that's when you'll know what's working or what's not working. Like, you know, you'll
yeah,
feel when the audience is listless or is losing interest or if a scene's too long or if a joke doesn't land or a scare doesn't, you know what I mean? It's just, and that's really, I think, the benefit of doing something like this before you lock
yeah.
your head, like, you know, just to
Oh
try.
no, and it's all for the best. But I can imagine just I could imagine just being very nervous though, like to get the
Oh yeah,
result.
absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. And then we had to you have to listen to this like focus group, covertly, I guess, like we're not in the room, but like not listening to like, there might be one person who stayed back for this focus group goes, now look, I don't like horror films or any of this at all, but here's my opinion. I'm like, well, you're never going to go see this film then, are you? Like, so yeah, so it's tough. It's a little bit tough. Like, yeah, yeah,
and that's it. But I suppose it all goes to strengthen the material. Like the more questions that are asked and the more it can hold up, the kind of stronger it becomes. Like it's good, but I can just like you're
yeah,
put
yeah.
so much
Oh, it's
work into it to get it to this point, and then to like to have people like specifically like their job sort of is to hammer away at it to see if it's like weakened points.
yeah,
God,
that's it. Like people, they're encouraged to then find fault, I suppose, not that there wasn't fault to find, but like all the questions are very leading, like what didn't you like, and they're not going to say nothing, I love it, they'll go, oh well, you know what I mean, like you have
yeah.
to think of it, yeah, so it's a
And
tough
okay,
process,
so
but it is, if you can brave it, I would definitely recommend it, yeah.
oh yeah. So that's good. Like it's just an interesting part of the process. I just didn't know that it's good to be mentally prepared. Like that's
Yeah,
your to have people do like I mean in the past it would have been like oh boards.ie slagging your stuff online and at least you get to see it before it hits that tell me about then like the I think that you were talking about the VFX and I think the sound as well
yeah.
like plays such a strong role in kind of creating the layers of the world. Like how do you kind of like delve into that? Is that something that again you would have had like a strong idea going in? Is it something that you'd kind of be tweaking as you're developing it?
Yeah, I knew sound was going to be like huge. Like obviously, like I don't know, we talked about like the visual prep I did and like watching, like because visual hallucination stuff, but I knew sound was going to be um just so important. Like, and it is in any horror film or thriller, like and especially something like this where you're trying to immerse the audience into the kind of character's state of mind, playing with sound. So again, that was ideas that I was trying, like I was looking for references of different sounds or scores or sound design. Brendan Rehel, who was the sound designer in this, we would have had a lot of conversations early on. Like when we were editing, he would have been kind of trying things out himself or experimenting. Like one of the first things was trying to find the tone of the facility itself. So he was experimenting with all like machinery noises and trying to get this hum, and we want it to be subterranean. So like, how do you get that sort of bubbling over each scene, like this sort of this tone and this hum, this oppressive kind of feeling. And then in terms of score, I really wanted this sort of, I said it earlier, like John Carpenter, but that kind of electronic synthy kind of score I thought would feed well into the film. So Dee Hexon, who was the composer, she's like incredible. Like, yeah, so she would be a big John Carpenter fan as well. So that was like one of a few kind of reference or touching points for us. But I wanted her to put her own spin on it, you know. And then like I think score and sound design, the best compliment I can pay to them is there's a good crossover and bleeding between the two. Even though they were done independent of each other, I think they kind of marry each other well. And there's the score and the sound design kind of, it feels like of a whole, you know.
Creating the kind of the texture of the space in a way that like really elevates it, because I think that's one of the things when you're when it's missing, it's the thing you don't realize it, but it feels, the whole thing feels off no matter how good the other elements are. Tell me as well, is there, now you've kind of got it to the final stage, is there a stage then where you like and Screen Ireland and the distributors, like that you all sit down and you're like, we are ready to go? Or is it just like everything needs to be done by this date, we are done? Like how, like what's that kind of like final signing off process
Yeah,
like?
no, it's like films are never finished, they're abandoned. Like that is the way it is, unfortunately. Like, yeah, you just have a deadline. Like I probably could have kept tweaking this until, but it's probably a good thing that there's like a deadline, you know? Um, so yeah, no, it just you have deadlines to meet, like, you know, deliverable deadlines, and the same thing, like you don't have an exhaustible budget or post-production budget. So like you're booked in for a limited amount of time with, like we did in Outer Limits in Dublin. And like Gary Kern, who's the colorist, like he on the film, like he's like one of the, I think he is the top colorist in the country. So, you know, we have a short window of time with him, you know, the short window of time with Brendan, the sound designer. So yeah, you just have like, you just like a tight post-production schedule as well. You're just kind of trying to have to do your best to hit those deadlines, those targets, yeah.
To get it in. And so this screen at Galway first, was that the premiere? Or
Uh,
what was the premiere of this?
it was screened at NIFFF in
Nice.
Switzerland. It's like Neuchâtel. It's like this genre. It's one of the kind of bigger genre ones in Europe. So we screened there, and then it was like a week later we screened at Galway for the Irish premiere at the Fleadh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what, so I presume you were there. That was it, is it one of those moments where you're like, oh, because I think horror specifically, it's so about the journey. It's, and you're there with the audience and you can just feel that at every stage. What was that like? That
Yeah, that was nerve-wracking. Definitely the first screening, like it was, yeah, uncomfortable, I guess, but it was a relief then, you know what I mean? It's actually in Switzerland as well. Like they're a really animated crowd. Like it's like almost like that kind of cliched American audience, like shouting at the screen kind of thing. Like they do that there, like, which is like, you know, they were like, you know, like shouting different things and applauding when like the first death happened. They're like, woo, all this sort of stuff. So that was like, oh, okay. So it's like, okay, it's never going to be like this again. So like, yeah, I'm never going to have such you know, a loud response. Like, so that was great. Like, but then the flash screening I think was really enjoyable too. Like, because that was, yeah, it was like we were sold out in the town hall and we had like a lot of the cast and crew there. So it was a real kind of culmination of a lot of years of hard work, I suppose. And it was just great for them to see like uh their hard work on the screen as well, I think, you know. So that was a real, yeah, that was a great atmosphere at the Fly. Like, yeah, that was, I enjoyed that screening more because having done it the week before in at NIFF, I got my nerves out of the way a little bit, you know. So I was able to kind of rest in and enjoy the experience.
in terms of selling this, so you already had a distributor on board, so it's not a case of you have to go to marketplaces and sell this, or like, or do they sort of work with Screen Ireland in setting up your festival premieres before cinematic release?
Yeah, so there was a bit about this. There was like with Epic, they have like a festival coordinator. So they would be, yeah, like sending it out to different festivals and like coordinate. And then like Wildcard, who are our Irish distributor, they were like setting up with the Flan stuff as well. And then yeah, like coordinating any kind of sales and stuff going forward, like for streaming and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you kind of have your plan laid in place now for this. And while this is screening at your festivals, are you and Darach working on another project? Like, is it just a case of like this is out there now, so we have to strike while the iron is hot, and these are the things that are in our tool belt, or would you already have that sort of in motion?
So we do have another project in development with Screen Ireland, like at a kind of first draft stage. Like we're in the first round of development with Screen Ireland, and it's another horror thriller. So hopefully on a bigger scale, bigger budget. So yeah, we're hoping now. Like we've had some meetings about that with other people as well, and Simon, our producer, he's going over to Berlinale this week. Like so he's and he pitched it at the Fleadh marketplace as well. Like last summer. So we're hoping that's going to be next. And then hopefully like if Double Blind does well or is well received, like it's like a good calling card, I guess, to say, look what we did with no money. Let's give us some more money.
And do you feel as well? So you would have already been working in the commercials world, sort of adjacent to this. So even though like your name would still be out there when it comes to getting gigs and things, would you have you found like now this is out in the industry, that you're getting maybe offers for TV or anything like that? Do you feel like as a career has it opened your like yourself up as a director, or do you think that will happen after the release?
Well, on the back of the Galway screening, I got an agent. I got like signed to Curtis Brown in the UK. So like
Brilliant.
my agent was at the screening in the Fleadh, and then like approached me afterwards, like So that was great. Like I got an agent on the back of it, and now, I would love to direct TV, and that's something I'm actively trying to pursue. So I would have had like my agent would have set up meetings at the start of the year with different producers and different things, and yeah, hopefully now that coming out, this will go towards that.
And have you done your water bottle tour?
I've done a little bit of that. Yeah, at the start, I went over to London in January, start of January. I did a bit of a water bottle tour, and that was with both kind of film and TV production companies, kind of. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's very much so like, I presume it's like, in high society, like you're coming out,
Yeah,
you're being introduced to the world. Like here's Ian as a director. Like I'm just very interested to see, like I know you can't, if nothing is locked down, you can't really talk about it, but it's interesting to see that shift, that step up. Can you feel it now more so, or would you already have been a little bit established from commercials and your other work? Or do you feel like, oh no, I am being perceived in a different way as a director?
I think it's yeah, no, I think it's more so as a direction because even when I was doing shorts and like and the commercial, I would have been producing a lot of that as well. So it was kind of depending on the hat, I'd have to put on, oh, I might produce this or direct it. Like whereas now, I think with it, even though I had some short films that I directed that did well, once you have a feature, it's just a different sort of you're looked at a bit differently, I think, That's not putting down short films or anything, but I think it's just
Yeah.
it's a more
Like it's an art form, but I
shape,
presume
so
most people do it to in order as the stepping stone to
yeah.
get a feature or to get, a longer form project. I do definitely think like they're so important and a beautiful form, but I do think like that is the sort of industry
Goal, I guess, to get
goal in
yeah.
some ways is to get your money across the line. And do you like would you write or would you develop longer form projects yourself on the side or anything like that? Is that something that you leave to Dara? Do you see yourself solely as being a director?
First and foremost, director. Like I mean, I do have a project that I'm developing. It was something that I'd written before that I'm developing that with another writer. But I think I work better. I think I'm very good at ideas, like in concepts, like even like Gridlock, that was an idea I had. Like I had the concept for that to pitch and then would have then given it to Darach and said, can you make this a script? Like, can you write this, develop this, put characters? So that's I think, and even working with Darach, he's a fantastic writer and he has like really great concepts. I think I work well in terms of giving him feedback or like giving notes on drafts, that kind of thing. Not rewriting, but like
Yeah.
suggest. Like, so I think we work that way. So yeah, no, I think I would. I'm not a writer director necessarily. I'd be more a director. But I have other projects that we're trying to develop and like other scripts and always trying to you have to try and have a few things on the boil as it were just because you don't know how long something will be in development. Like we have another screenplay, we have two screenplays with Darach that are in development with Screen Ireland, and it's just a case of which one's going to go first, I suppose.
Yeah. And at the money, like it's so dependent on, is the money there for that one at that time? And you don't know, you don't know what else is in the ecosystem at that time as well that might be, existing in a similar space, or, maybe the audience isn't ready for it. Like how in your film, again, the audience was created for it. But like, thank you so much. I think it's just such an interesting and exciting point in your career. And I think we're like, it's so wonderful watching the evolution, I think, from fans of your work for such a long time. And so we're really grateful for you to chat. I'm sure there's like many filmmakers that are like, oh my God, oh, that's how it works. And it's great to see. So we wish you all the best. And when you get your next one, please come back to us.
Absolutely. Like I was really excited to come on today because I've listened to a bunch of these podcasts. I remember even when I was doing pre-production, I was listening to your one with Conor McMahon, and Conor would have given me like some great advice in pre-production. So I remember at the time I was like, oh, I hope I get on there now talking about my film when it's done. Like, so I was delighted to come on today.
Yay. Oh, we're so thrilled to have you. Yeah, because it's so exciting. And I think it's just really interesting to hear what that looks like for like filmmakers that are coming up through the ranks. Because like, I mean, the whole thing can sometimes just be like a mystery, do you know? Where you're like, oh, you just all of a sudden you're here and then someone's over there and you don't see what the steps are. So sorry, that's why I was like grilling you for the
No,
whole
and I
time.
hope I hope it was helpful. Like, yeah, and it is. Yeah, like unfortunately, it is a bit of a long game. Like, I don't think it's, yeah, unless you're very lucky. I think even like these overnight successes, you like they've been at hard graft for years. You know what I mean? You just might not be aware of it. Like, so, um, yeah, just keep at it for anyone who's doing like short films. Like, just try and persevere. Like, don't give up.
Don't. That is so important. Oh, thank you so much for chatting with us. That is so interesting to hear.
Thanks a million, Jen. Thanks for having me.